Meantime, Democratic incumbent Karen Bass is stomping across LA as polls show an extraordinarily tight race.
Moms are getting me elected because I'm saying, oh, as mayor, I'm going to enforce the law and make sure moms and kids can use their parks again. They can go to school without encampment.
So the jungle primary election is set to take place this Tuesday in both LA and California as a whole. And we're already seeing some pretty interesting numbers pour in that first and foremost prove the Spencer Pratt surge is undeniable. He is polling quite well, in some cases polling in first place, although you could say, hey, those are polls, can we really trust them? That's completely fair. But another metric we ought to perhaps look at is the early vote data, which is likewise suggesting that GOP turnout is actually up and Democrat turnout and enthusiasm is down on a year that you would think to be a blue wave, right? Democrats should be super energized. Trump is in the White House. They're angry about that. It seems like for whatever reason, they're not that happy about their candidates, which is, of course, a big mystery as to why in California. But I would further say not only is this good news for both Spencer Pratt and the Republican governor candidates like Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco, but likewise, if this can be replicated nationwide, which I'm not saying it will, but if it is, if this trend carries into the midterms, it's actually very good news for Republicans as a whole and maybe cast doubts upon the doom and gloom vision that a lot of people seem to have. Not guaranteeing it, but this is a sign for optimism. So let's break down some of these numbers in today's video. I'll tell you about mainly Spencer Pratt, but also statewide how the GOP is doing, because there certainly does seem to be a connection where the Republican and right-leaning people of the state are kind of having this fire about them right now. They have good candidates. The Democrats have bad candidates, and that's having an effect. Hey, notably, it's not only in California where you can make a choice to have good candidates and the other party drops the ball with these radical left weirdos. So let's get into it. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. That is the best way to support our work, and it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, we'll get into the polls here in a second. But first of all, what am I talking about with this early vote data? Well, this is a metric you may remember we kind of used to forecast the 2024 election, and going into election day, I said, based on it, it looks like we're going to win. We did win. Well, here is what early voting looks like now compared to 2022. So at this point in 2022, in the California primaries, Democrats were at 54%, Republicans were at 27%, independents were at 20%. So this is basically judging the party registration of early voting and mail-in ballots and stuff like that that come in. Now, in 2024, you notice Democrat turnout is down 10%. They're at 44%, Republican turnout at 35%, so they're up 8 points from last time, and the independents, they're sitting at about the same, about 21. So this is to say, Democrat turnout, for whatever reason right now, down 10 points from the last midterms, Republican turnout up 8 points. Now, California has been shifting red in general, but I would remind people, again, not only is this should be a blue midterm because the Republicans have the White House, but likewise back in 2022 was a Republican favorable year still. I mean, I know it wasn't a red wave. We say it was a red trickle. Republicans still took the House, but yes, that's the normal midterm effect. So what you would expect is at the very least, Democrats should do about the same, if not better this time around, because it should be a blue midterms. And yet they're down 10 points. What exactly is going on there? Well, guys, I don't think this is much of a mystery. I think, first of all, the added failures of California between a flailing economy, the affordability crisis, homelessness, crime, all of these things. Yeah, in general, you'd have to imagine voters are not happy about it, and there's this sense of disillusionment, even among Democrats, which I will say, having grown up in LA, I know people there and stuff, right, is kind of the truth. I mean, there's this weird psychosis where they hate Trump and Republicans, but they also complain about everything Democrats have caused, and I do know some people who have actually flipped parties in 2024 because of that, and maybe that's why the state kind of shifted, 10 points to the right, because this is happening with some people. But you notice not only is that trend continuing, but I would further state, I think this honestly has a lot to do with the candidates, because let's look at the LA mayor's race, right? So the Republican leaning people very energized behind Spencer Pratt. We like him. He's kind of becoming a celebrity in our movement at this point. And yeah, a lot of people are excited to vote for him. That stuff matters. On the flip side, if you're a Democrat in LA, what are you going to be rushing to the polls to vote for Karen Bass? Frankly, I don't know anyone who actually is a hardcore, genuine supporter of Karen Bass, right? The general attitude is maybe that, oh, well, she's the Democrat, I guess I'm going to vote for the Democrat. And then you look at the progressive in the race, sure, some of the far left Looney Tunes characters in LA are behind her as well, right? Nithya Rahman. But likewise, her crazy stances on homelessness are turning that off as well. Same thing, by the way, with the governor's race. You notice a pattern here, right? I'm still going to ask this question now. We're days away from the election. Who is the Democrat frontrunner for the governor's race in California? We've talked about this many times. Is it going to be Tom Steyer, the billionaire guy? He seems to have collapsed, but he still has the money. Is it Xavier Becerra? We reacted to that guy. He's a joke, right? Whereas Republicans know our top two candidates are Bianco and Hilton, and there are some varying opinions there. But what I will just say is that in general, the conservatives of the state are more energized than the liberals. And so what does that mean? What does that translate to? I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's California. The election system is broken. We're not going to win there anyway. Look, the Democrats are still leading, therefore it's meaningless. Well, here's what I would say first and foremost is I think no matter where you live, you have to still try. But then likewise, again, if this trend can be replicated, and let's not forget, there are congressional races and things like that in California as well that affect the national balance of power, then that's still good news for Republicans, right? It's just a sign that, hey, if our side has more energy than their side in midterm elections, as I've said many times, always come down to turnout, that can be a sign for optimism. But even deeper than that, so Spencer Pratt, right? If you're looking at this is good news for you. Hey, my Republican energy is up in California, Democrat energy is down. Not much of a surprise. Who wants to vote for Karen Bass? But even then, I would say that, we've kind of posed the possibility before of Republicans kind of stealing the governorship in California just by taking the top two positions, because we've explained, right? The California primary is not the traditional R primary, D primary. They face off in the general. It's a jungle nonpartisan thing where all the candidates are on the same ballot, right? You can vote for whoever you want. And so theoretically, because the Democrats are so disoriented, they have no clear candidate. If we manage to get Bianco into second place, which I know some people don't like Bianco, they say he's too soft on immigration, Trump, things like this, doesn't matter. The point is, if we can make that scenario happen, which again, if Democrat turnout really drops off, is a possibility. Hey, Republicans can take the top two positions. The general election is a Republican versus Republican race. So that's why I've encouraged people to vote for Bianco, because he's the second place Republican. Some people come at me saying, oh, well, I don't like this about him. That's not the point. It's not about litigating who's the better Republican. It's about let's have some strategy here. And again, it's a long shot. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you want any shot at somehow taking the governorship in the state, I would argue this is the best chance. And the early voting numbers, the drop-off of Democrats seems to pan that out, right? Because if we, take some of the independents, for example, based on the way this is standing, hey, we could even have Republicans and independents combined who maybe, either divide votes or some vote Republican, whatever. It's possible. It's possible is what I'm going to say. So that is the picture on one hand, and yeah, not an optimistic sign if you're Democrats hoping your base would be energized, but hey, don't run terrible candidates then. I've seen, by the way, election cycles where Republicans make that same mistake, but interestingly, at least in California right now, it's Democrats making that mistake.
Yeah, thankfully, it's a nonpartisan race, so I don't have to be either. I have probably...
What are you?
I'm a registered Republican, but my supporters are all Democrats because Los Angeles is all Democrats. All the people financing me are Democrats. All the meetings I take every day are Democrats. Democrats are very angry with what happened to Los Angeles. They were fed a bunch of lies by Mayor Bass, who said she was going to literally solve homelessness. She was going to do all these things she didn't do. So all of the people that put her actually in office are now behind me. So it's a nonpartisan race. There's no letter next to either of our names because the mayor is not supposed to represent a party. They're supposed to make sure your moms are safe, your houses don't burn down, and your tax money is going to your infrastructure, not to fund drug addicts. So thankfully, I have Republicans that love me. I have Democrats that love me. I have independents that love me. Even some socialists message me and they're like, hey, don't be so mean to us. We like you too. I'm like, sorry, I don't mess with socialists.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of Spencer Pratt, it is looking increasingly likely that he will take either first or second place on Tuesday in advance of the general election. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself there, because first of all, everyone has to vote, everyone has to do their part who is a resident of Los Angeles. Secondly, there is obviously the massive mail-in ballot issue to deal with in California, which we have to turn out so high that we overcome, right? That's sort of the job that needs to be performed there, which is a daunting task, but you have to believe in it, right? But all of that in mind, I just want to point out, even if he does advance to the general election, that in itself is a massive accomplishment, given this is coming from a guy who basically started a campaign almost like Trump in a sense that was written off as a joke, right? Who is this reality TV star? What is he going to do? It was widely assumed Rick Caruso was going to be the Republican adjacent challenger in Los Angeles. He decided not to run. And at that point, the Democrats declared, oh, we have the mayorship all locked into ourselves. It's just Democrat versus Democrat. This guy, let's not forget, and he deserves massive credit for this, basically came from nowhere and is now polling effectively neck and neck with Karen Bass and in some cases the other Democrat.
Chances are up significantly over the last few months. You know, you go back a few months ago, February 26th, he had just a 7% chance. What is that? That's 5 plus 2. Now it's up like a rocket. There's a pretty decent chance of it. It's now up over a quarter, a 27% chance. So those who dismiss Pratt's chances, well, you got another thing coming because he's got a realistic shot of winning this.
And why, by the way, are prediction markets surging his chances? It's because likewise, not just the early voting data, but the polling, first of all, is seeming to show he is almost the solid pick at this point for second place. Not all of the polls are showing that, but most at this point. For example, we look at the RCP aggregate, and of the recent ones, so there was a recent Berkeley poll, which take that as you will. The LA Times Berkeley poll came out. It had Bass at 26 points, Ramon at 25 and Pratt at 22. So that would suggest Democrat versus Democrat. But besides that, all the other recent ones have Pratt in at least second place. For example, Signal came out. They have Bass 25, Pratt 22, Ramon 18. So Pratt is a very close second basically to Bass. That means he would advance to the general election. We'll repeat that. Emerson, likewise, conducted at the start of May, have Bass at 30, Pratt at 22, Ramon at 19. The California Post poll, conducted by McLaughlin, actually shows Spencer Pratt with a slight lead, but effectively a virtual tie, right? Pratt with 30.1%, Bass at 29.5%, which if that were the result would mean he would actually take first place in the jungle primary, which undeniably would be a massive statement. And so keep in mind, especially local elections like this, they can be hard to poll. It's not necessarily even the most trustworthy. So you could say to an extent, some of this is still like margin of error adjacent type of stuff, but it doesn't matter. I think what it overall suggests is, hey, we've done something here. We're in striking range and we just have to take full advantage of the opportunity, because likewise, look at the polls from back in March, for example, right? Pratt was basically close to single digits, right? UCLA poll had him at 11 points, Berkeley poll at 14, Emerson at 10. He's basically doubled his support over the past month or so, or 2 months, which is, again, really impressive, really a testament to the campaign that he's run. And at the end of the day, by the way, you notice this too, Karen Bass's odds on Kalshi have dropped from 70% to win the mayorship in November to now 57%. Something is going on here. There is a shift. I mean, again, doesn't mean she's going to lose. I'm not promising. I'm not trying to do these like hype videos, like overplaying our hand. I'm just saying these are positive signs. And by the way, why does the LA mayor's race matter? We've made this point before, but we'll make it again. Oh, but we're not going to win. Okay, but here's the point though. Going into the general, let me just break some news to you. Not every single swing state election or swing district election is going to be that compelling or interesting. However, if we can tell a nationwide story, which what better guy to tell a story than someone with actual Hollywood experience, but basically to be the national ambassador for effectively, the culture war in a sense, or Republican versus Democrat, to represent, this is what I'm saying. If national eyes are on the LA mayor's race and it is a race between, let's just say, Bass and Pratt, that is actually a very good thing, because it shows voters maybe outside in actual swing states, actual swing districts that, hey, I'm paying a lot of attention to this and I feel like the Republican is right. Look how terrible the Democrat is. That's the story you want to tell. In the same sense that, for example, you could argue that the New York City mayor's race last year kind of, again, had those national eyes on it, and it sort of had maybe carryover effects that went nationwide. If Republicans likewise, because, in New York, no disrespect to Curtis Sliwa, but let's be honest, we didn't really have a candidate. Okay, if we're being real, we didn't really have like a strong person to be the ambassador for us, but maybe it sent the message, hey, the Democrat Party's turned far left, and that's something that bled outside of New York. Likewise, if we can basically, in the midterms, tell this national story of the crazy, insane leftists, right? The party of mass homelessness and crime and decay versus the Republicans are the party of common sense. And hey, the most talked about election in the country, for example, is Pratt versus Bass. That's something you want to be working on our side, even if Pratt, let's say, overperforms but doesn't win. So I know there are no moral victories and we want to play to win in every situation, but even without that, I would say that's why this race matters. And that's why I think it's actually a good thing that we're talking about it. You know, you might say, oh, it's a waste of time. Why not focus on other elections? We'll obviously get there as the midterms draw closer. Okay, I'm not going to put too much attention on this at the sacrifice, at the cost, let's say, of, you know, elections that really maybe are consequential more on a nationwide level. But I would still say, you know, this is the debate, right? This is kind of the national debate, the national dialogue we want to be having. We want people to see this. And Spencer Pratt, very good communicator. We sort of want him to be a face of our party for the midterms, if that makes sense. And that's why we got to get him in second place at the very least. It's looking like it's trending in that direction, but hey, no complacency. We got to get the job done because you notice likewise in the prediction markets, Pratt and Vermont are still very close, and we certainly don't want that far left lunatic to be taking that spot. And, you know, it's LA, so things happen. Let's make sure it doesn't happen. Go vote, and statewide in California, make sure you go vote as well. That jungle primary, hey, not something to be overlooked for all the reasons we are bringing to you. But all right, that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.